Now in the Western Balkans, this is Josh Friedman coming to you from outside the government building in Skopje, Macedonia, where behind me you can see not only the Macedonian but the EU flag. That is something I remarked upon my last visit here, which marked a change in that the longtime nationalist Gruevski government is gone, and now the blatantly, overtly pro-European Union and pro-NATO Zaev government is in place. And that government has now been in place for nearly a year, and that provides us some things to reflect upon, as yes, change has certainly come in this country. For now, this country is still named Macedonia, or the Republic of Macedonia, but that could change due to Zaev's insistence on bringing Macedonia into NATO and the EU, and in order to do so, insistence upon resolving the name dispute with Greece. So talks have really heated up between Skopje and Athens over resolving this multi-decade long-standing dispute over the name of Macedonia. And right now there are some proposals that are being floated, something along the line of Upper Macedonia or North Macedonia, putting some geographical qualifier into the name of the country. And Zaev is pushing ahead with that, and the Prime Minister has suggested that the name dispute is going to be resolved by the completion of the first half of 2018, and we're now in April 2018, so I guess less than 2 months to go on Zaev's clock, this time frame that is given for resolving the name dispute. So what are some of the things that have already happened during these talks between Greece and Macedonia? Well, Zaev has already agreed to do so, and I believe it has already happened that both the airport here in Skopje and a major highway that leads from Macedonia down to Greece have been renamed. They were named after Alexander the Great, and now I believe the highway is called the Friendship Highway, and I'm actually not sure what the new name of the airport is. I need to check on that. Well, so Zaev is engaged in these talks. The renaming has already started, and we're going to see how this process plays out. It could get a little shaky. There have been large protests on both sides of the border, actually, and that's because there are major contingents both in Macedonia and in Greece, and particularly in the Greek Macedonian region. So there have been large protests in Greece, both in Thessaloniki, which is in the north, in the Greek Macedonian region, as well as down in Athens, and there have also been protests here in Skopje, as there are many people on both sides of the border who do not want there to be some compromise. The nationalists, as well as a lot of other people here in Macedonia, do not want the country renamed. They want Macedonia to remain Macedonia, not Upper Macedonia or North Macedonia or something along that lines. And there are many, many people in Greece. The protests have been said to be around 100,000, both up in Thessaloniki and possibly down in Athens as well, of people protesting the current Greek government's plan to reach some compromise with Skopje and to allow Macedonia to have some sort of qualifier in the name and then enter both NATO and the EU. Presumably, we're still years out from the EU accession possibly happening, but Macedonia's entrance into NATO could come fairly quickly if this name issue gets resolved. So there have also been a whole slew of changes, which some of them not terribly noteworthy, but one certainly is, and that is the language issue, although that really is unresolved as well. So some of you may recall from my previous reporting that the issue of the Albanian language getting or not getting official status nationwide as an official language nationwide in Macedonia. That has been a very hot issue in this country. Last spring, about a year ago, that led to daily protests for several weeks, possibly a month or even more, and that in a sense culminated with Zaev actually getting bloodied in a parliament brawl, which happened last April, nearly 1 year ago. That wasn't technically over the language issue, but it was very much over ethnic tensions between ethnic Macedonians and ethnic Albanians, and it ended up with a group of nationalists storming the parliament, and there were people beaten up and bloodied, and one of them was actually Zaev. So fast forward to this spring, the Macedonian parliament followed through on what was rumored to be Zaev's promise to the ethnic Albanian parties to get them to form a coalition with him, and that was to pass this language law making Albanian an official language nationwide in Macedonia. The parliament did do that. Now, the president of Macedonia, Georgi Ivanov, has been withholding his signature on the bill, and it's a little unclear how that's going to get resolved, but for all intents and purposes, that law or that bill has been passed, and I would think that it becomes law, although who knows, maybe there's going to be some court battle. So now with these major changes, particularly the name issue and the language issue, these are major affronts to the former ruling party Monero, as well as nationalists and some other people here in Macedonia. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of political blowback, if any, Zaev is dealt. He's certainly not making any friends among those contingencies, but he is very much pleasing Brussels, pleasing NATO, the EU, and for that matter, the US as well, for whatever influence they have here now. So the West is very happy with these moves, but a lot of people in this country are not. In fact, Zaev and his Social Democratic Party did not even win the elections that brought them to power. I mean, they weren't the first party. They narrowly trailed Monero in that vote, going back about a year and a half, and they had to strike a coalition deal with a couple ethnic Albanian parties in order to rise to power. So now, bringing that forward to this week, there is actually a no confidence vote that is scheduled to take place this week that the opposition is apparently going to return to the parliament for, although it doesn't appear that the opposition have enough numbers in the parliament to have a successful no confidence vote and to oust Zaev and his government, and that's really not looking likely. And in fact, going back to last fall, Zaev and the Social Democrats won convincingly in the local elections here. So in a sense, Zaev has consolidated some power here in Skopje, even though he's pursuing a very controversial agenda. So he clearly has the backing of the West, the EU, and NATO, but we'll see what kind of blowback, if any, comes about here in Skopje. And over the course of my trip, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between different Western Balkan states over the next week or week and a half. Maybe leaving Macedonia for now as soon as tomorrow and returning later in the week. We shall see. But I'd very much be interested in getting some of the perspective of nationalists here, as well as the ethnic Albanian community. Are they satisfied with this new language law, if we can call it that, or do they want more? Do they want more rights, as they are said to be, or as they are described? So I would very much on this trip like to hear from nationalists and from the ethnic Albanian community and maybe based on that have some gauge as to what kind of blowback, if any, we can be expecting to see for the overtly Euro-Atlantic policies that Zaev has been pursuing. For now, that is enough from Skopje. Thank you very much for watching, and you will be seeing plenty more of me from the Western Balkans in the coming days, possibly from Kosovo very shortly. For now, ciao, goodbye from Skopje.